Just as Officer Hayes and his team piece together the puzzle, the police station receives a chilling anonymous tip. Someone has been lurking near the abandoned construction site by the river. The same spot Max has been leading them to. Was the puppy trying to tell them something all along? Racing against time, officers storm the site, their flashlights slicing through the darkness. Then, a discovery that sends shivers down their spines. A rusted-out van sits hidden behind a pile of debris. Inside, stacks of documents, old police reports, and dog collars, each one marked with a date. Hayes' hands tremble as he flips through the files. Then, his breath catches. A photograph, aged and crumpled, shows a younger Max, barely recognizable, shackled alongside other dogs. His eyes? Full of terror. This wasn't just a missing dog. This was a survivor. A witness. Then, a sudden noise. From the shadows, a man lunges. He bolts toward the exit. He's getting away. But before the officers can react, a blur of motion. Max. A feral growl rips through the air as the puppy launches himself at the fleeing figure. Teeth bared. Eyes blazing. This isn't fear. This is justice. The man stumbles, tripping over debris. Officer seize the moment, tackling him to the ground. The suspect thrashes, screaming, but Max doesn't budge. He stands firm, a warrior who has waited for this moment his whole life. Why, you should have died with the rest of them! The man spits, his face twisted with rage. Hayes steps forward, his voice steady, unshaken. Not this time. Not ever again. Max lets out a low whimper, his body trembling, not with fear, but with relief. Hayes kneels beside him, running a gentle hand over his head. You did it, buddy. You stopped him. And in that moment, Max isn't just a stray anymore. He's a hero. A warrior. And for the first time in his life, he knows. He's home. The air inside the police station is thick with tension. Officer Hayes pores over the documents recovered from the construction site, his pulse racing. Every page, every name, every faded photograph, pieces of a horrifying puzzle falling into place. Then he sees it. A crumpled, yellowed photograph buried beneath the reports. A young, terrified dog, barely skin and bones, shackled to a rusted chain, his eyes hollow, pleading. Max. Hayes feels his breath hitch. The scars on the puppy's body, the way he refused to leave the station. He wasn't lost. He was seeking justice. A sudden crash. The silence shatters. A radio call from an officer stationed outside. Movement near the van. Someone is out there. Without hesitation, Hayes and his team rush toward the abandoned site, their flashlights slicing through the pitch-black night. Gravel crunches beneath their boots as they approach the rusted van where the documents were found. Then, a shadow moves. Freeze! Hayes shouts, gun drawn. But the figure bolts. He's running. He knows they've found him. And before the officers can even react, Max does. The small, once timid puppy moves like a flash of lightning, his growl slicing through the night air. This isn't fear. This is rage. This is justice. The fugitive stumbles, gasping as he turns, only to see Max leap through the air, eyes blazing with vengeance. He crashes to the ground, hands scrambling against the dirt as Max lands in front of him, teeth bared, body low, blocking his escape. The man's face twists in pure terror. Get that mutt away from me! He howls. Hayes and his team close in, pinning him down as he struggles. You're under arrest! Hayes growls, his voice steady. But the man isn't done. He sneers. "That dog should have been put down like the rest of him." The words ignite something in Hayes. His fists clench. The weight of the case, of Max's suffering, of the horror buried in those files, all of it surges forward. Hayes steps closer, looking the man dead in the eye. "Not this time," he says, voice like steel. "Not ever again." Max lets out a low whimper, as if understanding. It's over. The officers drag the suspect away, his curses fading into the night. But Max stays rooted in place, his body trembling, not with fear, but with something deeper. Relief. Closure. Hayes kneels, resting a hand gently on Max's head. "You did it, buddy. You led us here. You stopped him." Max lifts his eyes, and for the first time, they're not filled with pain. They're filled with peace. And in that moment, Max isn't just a stray anymore. He's a survivor, a warrior, a hero. And most of all, he's finally home. The night air is still heavy, the echoes of the confrontation fading into silence. The flashing red and blue lights cast eerie shadows on the abandoned site, but for the first time, there is no fear in Max's eyes. Hayes watches as his team loads the fugitive into the squad car, his face still twisted in defiance. But it doesn't matter anymore. Justice has been served. The case that haunted Max, the ghosts of his past, are finally put to rest. Max stands beside Hayes, his small frame still trembling, his wide eyes scanning the scene as if trying to understand. Is it really over? Hayes kneels beside him, his usually firm, no-nonsense expression softening. "You're safe now, buddy. No more running." Max lets out a deep, weary sigh, the kind that only comes from a soul that has fought too long, endured too much. His little body slumps, exhaustion overtaking him, and for the first time, he rests. A new beginning. The next morning, the police station is buzzing. News of Max's incredible journey has spread like wildfire, making headlines across town. Police car light. "Stray dog helped solve cold case. Justice served after years of silence." Police car light. The story captivates everyone. A once-lost puppy leading officers to an underground crime ring? It's the kind of thing that sounds almost impossible, except it happened. But while the world sees a heroic dog, Hayes sees something deeper. Max isn't just a hero. He's a survivor. Later that afternoon, as Hayes walks Max down the station's hallways, officers stop to pet him, their once hardened faces melting into admiration. Even the toughest of them can't resist his story. "Never seen anything like it," one officer mutters, shaking his head. "I say we keep him," another chimes in, grinning. "He's more loyal than half the rookies here." Max wags his tail, his golden fur gleaming under the station lights. For the first time, he isn't howling. He isn't waiting for someone to notice him. Because now he belongs. The final decision. That evening, Hayes stands in his office, staring down at the adoption form in his hands. It feels strange. He's never considered himself a dog person. His life has been nothing but long shifts, stacks of case files, and the grim reality of crime. But Max? Max changed everything. The papers are simple, just a few signatures, but the weight of them is heavy. A choice. Hayes glances down at Max, who sits at his feet, gazing up at him with quiet trust. The same trust that led him to the station. The same trust that led him to justice. With a deep breath, Hayes grabs the pen and signs. Max isn't going anywhere. He's home. One final howl. That night, the city is quieter than usual. No sirens, no shouting, just a peaceful hum of life moving forward. Max curls up on his new bed inside Hayes' apartment, a soft blanket draped over him. He's safe. Truly safe. Hayes watches him for a moment before turning off the lights. Then, just as he's about to fall asleep, a familiar sound breaks the silence. A howl. Soft. Steady. Not one of sorrow or longing, but one of victory. A final tribute to the past, and a welcome to the future. Because heroes don't always wear badges. Some just have 4 paws and an unbreakable spirit.